They did a wife swap. It turned out deadly. He was still in his slippers when they found him, mouth open. One eye was frozen shut with dried blood. The smell of bleach lingered. Just not enough of it. One victim, one survivor. No clear story. They met at a neighborhood barbecue with burgers, wine, and a Bluetooth speaker cracking out 2000s pop. Mark and Diane had been married for 16 years. Polite, practiced, always keeping score. Across the yard stood Jake and Lila, who were fairly younger, louder, and tangled in each other like teenagers. No one remembers who made the first joke about switching, but by the second bottle of wine, the laughter had teeth. The glances seemed to linger a bit too long. Lila asked Mark what he used to look like before the tie. Diane didn't laugh. That was the night a crack formed. Small, almost invisible, but it was surely there. But some jokes don't stay jokes, especially when someone dares to say yes. It started as a dare, or maybe a test, after Mark made the offer like a joke, half laughing, eyes fixed on Lila. In response, Jake raised his glass and smirked. Only if Diane's game. And to everyone's surprise, Diane didn't say no. The rules were vague, at best. One night, total privacy, no judgment. Jack and Diane left in one car, and Mark and Lila in the other. No one spoke about it afterward, but everyone felt very aware of what it was. For some, it felt like freedom, and for others, a quiet undoing of sorts. Because it wasn't just bodies that had been exchanged. It was secrets as well. Secrets that one of them couldn't let go of. Because not everything the night leaves behind knows how to stay quiet. Despite the lingering tension, no one talked about what happened, but knew something had shifted. Diane moved slower that morning, her robe clutched too tightly, eyes distant, and Mark didn't even look at her. In the guest bathroom, the water ran too long, steam curling out beneath the door. Lila sat at the kitchen island pretending to scroll her phone, eyes hollow, while Jake brewed coffee like it was any other morning. Behind the wall, quiet crying bled into the sound of the shower. It was Lila, or maybe Diane, but no one asked, nor did anyone want to know. Behind all of it, one of them never moved on, because for someone, the night didn't end when the morning came. And it started with a text at 2:14 a.m. Thinking about last weekend. You? Diane read it twice, then deleted it. The next night, Jake showed up at her work, said he was just passing through. But he wasn't. He lingered near her car, smiled too long, said things he hadn't even said during the swap. Mark noticed. He didn't ask, but he started watching her differently. Diane told herself it was harmless, but the messages kept coming more frequently now. Jake wasn't asking anymore. He was assuming, and Diane was starting to realize she'd opened a door she couldn't shut. You see, obsession doesn't just grow. It spreads until everything it touches starts to rot. One night, Diane found messages. Jake had saved them. Some were quite graphic, and some were even worse. "You said you missed me," Diane whispered, and Jake replied, "You begged me to come." She denied it, but Mark didn't believe her. Lila accused Jake of stalking. He laughed, called it just fallout. No one believed anyone. Conversations turned into shouting, and apologies collapsed into silence. The original couples, the ones who started it all, were now strangers, and something darker was moving in their place. She tried to pull away, but some obsessions don't loosen. They tighten. Jake showed up at Diane's gym, claiming it was coincidence, twice in 1 week. She changed her schedule, but he found her anyway. Mark watched from the bedroom window as she typed and erased replies to Jake's messages over and over. Meanwhile, Lila had packed a bag, said she needed space. Mark said nothing. but he did buy a gun. It was not really a threat, but just in case, he told himself. Whereas Diane had started locking the bathroom door, and Jake had stopped asking for permission. Whatever game they thought this was, it wasn't anymore, and no one could pretend otherwise. What's crazy is that there was one moment, a chance, to stop it, but no one stepped in. Lila's best friend heard it over speakerphone. Jake's voice, low and slurred. "If I can't have you, no one will." She told Lila to call someone. Lila said she already had. That same night, a neighbor reported loud banging, shouting, a woman crying, and glass breaking. Officers showed up, took notes. No one answered the door, and nothing came of it. The next morning, Lila's car sat untouched with the lights off, phone silent, and her apartment locked from the inside. The last sighting was her storming out, keys in one hand, the other shaking. Jake's phone pinged nearby 20 minutes later. And Diane? When asked where she was that night, she hesitated, changed her story. Twice. Something happened that night, and someone in her circle knows exactly what. The candles flickered, and the plates remained untouched as Diane poured the wine, her hand visibly trembling. Jake offered a too-wide grin, while Mark sat rigid, watching everything in silence. Lila forced a laugh, but her eyes kept drifting toward the door, deliberately left wide open, almost like someone planned it that way. Then came a pause so unnatural it felt staged. A chair scraped back as someone shouted, and then a crash. Something wet hit the tile. Blood began to spread beneath the table as Jake lay crumpled, gasping. Mark stood above him, bleeding, gripping the knife. Had Jake snapped? Had Mark seen Lila as a threat? Diane said nothing, just watched, as if this was always going to happen. It was past midnight when the neighbors saw the front door hanging open. No movement, just the flicker of a static-filled screen humming in the dark. Hours later, police stepped into a strange stillness with no signs of forced entry. But there were very strange drag marks on the tile that simply didn't match the scene. And then, one wine glass sat untouched, while the second one was missing. The knife in the sink had been rinsed, but traces of blood clung beneath the rim. Diane sat stiff on the couch, eyes unfocused, while Mark's hands were freshly bandaged. Neither explained the muddy footprints in the hallway. They both claimed self-defense, but they disagreed on who needed protecting and what needed hiding. Diane sat curled into herself, arms tight, voice cracking, as she insisted Jake lunged first, said Mark saved her. In the next room, Mark was still, detached, claiming Diane screamed, but no one ever laid a hand on her. The stories fractured under pressure, the sequence of the struggle, the angle of the wound, even who touched the knife. One spoke in panic, the other like it was rehearsed. But investigators saw what didn't belong. An erased voicemail at 11:17 p.m., muddy shoes placed under the couch, and a broken hair clip in the hallway no one mentioned. Something more than the murder had been staged, the story they tried to wrap around it. Weeks later, a baby monitor turned up hidden in a box of blankets. No video, just audio. Rustling, a thud, and Mark's voice. Calm, final. Now it's done. The sound of water running, and a little chuckle before going silent. But before that, something else. A faint whisper, barely audible. It wasn't Mark or Jake, just 4 chilling words. She won't be a bother anymore. With Jake already dead and Diane outside, sobbing, who could it be? They called it self-defense, but obsession always leaves scars, and, in this case, secrets. Was it self-defense, or could it be that this was always the plan? What do you think?